Hey everybody, today I am out on a really stormy, rainy, nasty morning. I'm actually under the shelter at just a neighborhood way on the east side of Indianapolis. I'm actually physically in McCordsville right now, but Indianapolis is just off to my west here, so just barely east of Indianapolis. And we're going to talk about severe weather in Indianapolis and the whole Indy Metro a little bit in this video and what you can expect. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If you want to know everything there is to know about living in Indianapolis or any of the cities and towns surrounding Indianapolis, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. And we have people reaching out to us from all over the country with questions about, of course, the weather in Indianapolis and what they can expect, especially the scary stuff, the severe weather. So if you have questions about that or anything else regarding Indianapolis, what might be a fit for you as far as living in particular areas, cities and towns that surround Indianapolis, make sure you reach out to us any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to the Indy Metro. So I'm a little east of Indianapolis, actually right on the border of it here in McCordsville, and actually at this little neighborhood park at the playground here, and then the neighborhood pool is right here behind me, although absolutely nobody's in here today, and this is just a little shelter. You might be able to hear the rain hitting it. It has slowed down some, but I mean it was absolutely pouring just a minute or two ago, and the wind was blowing. In fact, there's not really, you can see a little bit here. I'm under this shelter, but most of the ground here is actually wet. So, I mean, it was blowing in like crazy, and it's warm out, but given that it's so windy and wet, I got a little chilly. So storms like this, I mean, it's only about 8 in the morning right now. And I've been surprised over the years as to people relocating here. They're coming from really very different climates, and they have questions about the severe weather here. So in the Midwest, we're known to have some severe weather. Tornadoes, definitely a possibility. And do tornadoes happen in Indiana? They absolutely do. Now, I've lived in Indiana my whole life, and I've never seen a tornado with my own eyes. Now, I've definitely been around tornadoes. I wouldn't say around tornadoes that are huge and extremely destructive, but certainly tornadoes that are indicated on radar or there's a funnel cloud sighted, but I've never seen that. And I've certainly never seen a tornado on the ground. Now, I know people that have seen that, certainly, but I've never seen one with my own eyes, but that doesn't mean that they don't happen, because they absolutely do. Now, most tornadoes, they occur in really rural areas for the most part, because truthfully, most of the country, not just Indiana, but most of the country is rural. And then you get these pockets of more dense populations. So cities, towns, and statistically, a tornado is going to pass through an unpopulated area more often than it is a populated area. But that doesn't mean it can't hit an area like this, a neighborhood like this, but it's really extremely rare. Now, in Indiana, we have a lot of basements, and we can use those as a storm shelter, but it's not why they're built. We have basements in Indiana really simply because we can. The ground here allows it, and there are a lot of places in the country where you can't do that because the ground really won't allow you to have a basement, but here we can. And it's a cheap way to add square footage to a house. So, of course, you can have a 1 level with a basement, and now it's virtually twice as large. You could have a 2-level home with a basement, and now it's 50% larger because you have that basement. But you don't have to worry about an exterior. You don't have to build the walls in the same way. It requires different insulation. I mean, it's a very, very inexpensive type of square footage to put in, rather than a whole other floor on top of a house or to expand the house. Ranch style homes are usually more expensive than 2-story homes because they have a bigger footprint, so they require usually a bigger lot. They have a bigger roof. They just require more material to build. So that's one reason why you'll see ranch homes a lot of times more expensive than a 2-story. But those basements, inexpensive. But we can use them as storm shelters if you want. That's completely fine. But we have other storm shelters or places to go whenever severe storms hit. And you'll see tornado shelter or severe storm shelter, sometimes signs in buildings, and especially in schools, places like that. And they're usually going to be places that are barricaded in some way, like with cinder block walls or concrete, and not just stick and wood and really, really breakable, not so strong materials that could stand up to winds. So tornadoes, I don't think you'd have to worry too much about tornadoes necessarily. Of course, they're always in the back of your head. What should be, I wouldn't say to the point that scares you, but A little more concerning would be just severe weather, just thunderstorms in general, because severe thunderstorms can definitely cause some damage. And they're going to be more widespread. At least the damage from a severe thunderstorm is going to be more widespread than what you have with a tornado. Severe thunderstorm can have a much bigger footprint than a tornado, even though that footprint of the tornado is extremely severe nearby, but a severe thunderstorm can affect miles. And some of the things that you'd want to, of course, be concerned about in a severe thunderstorm would be winds, lightning, and hail. Now, lightning would be pretty rare, but lightning can strike a house, and I have seen houses that have burned from lightning strikes. Exceptionally rare, but of course it does happen, and if it's something that worries you so much, you can have a lightning strike system installed in your house to prevent that. Wind, straight line winds from a thunderstorm, usually the winds don't last very long. They're a lot of times at the leading edge of a thunderstorm, but it can blow siding off of a house. It can rip shingles off of a house, of course. Now, it's going to have to be unbelievably severe winds to actually take a roof off or something like that, but you can get 70-mile-per-hour winds, and they can certainly take shingles off of a house if they get underneath those. And then, of course, the other thing, too, is that, you know, this neighborhood right here is not stuffed with them because this neighborhood is relatively new, but there are trees out there. And that's the thing that concerns me the most in a severe storm, is that when you get these super strong winds and super strong gusts, the trees are usually quite tough, but occasionally you can have branches break off of them. And so when that happens, of course, if your tree is over your house, that's a big concern, but it's more of a nuisance when it's out in the yard. So I remember the very first house that I bought years ago, this was back in very early 2000s, I planted a couple of trees in the backyard, and it's been over 20 years since they've been there, and they grew dramatically. It's awesome. And I'll sometimes drive by that house occasionally if I'm in the area, and I can see the trees back there. But not that long ago, a storm brought half of one of them down. Pretty tragic. I mean, it was a really big tree at the time that storm brought it down, but half of it's gone now. But weirdly, the other half is doing pretty well. It just looks really super funky now. Sometimes if you lose a lot on a tree, the tree can die. Other times, it might just carry on as normal. So winds can certainly be a concern, but usually when a storm goes through, you don't have any damage from that. The other thing, the one thing that people don't think about very much at all, I'd say, at least in talking to people over the years, as far as severe damage or severe thunderstorm damage is concerned, because people mostly think about wind more than anything, is the hail. So when we get a severe thunderstorm, hail is always on my mind, and it's on a lot of other people's mind. So I've had multiple houses over the years, and I've had two occasions, where the entire roof was replaced. And in fact, the first house there, on the one with the trees in the backyard that I planted, that one had a new roof and new siding all the way around the house, because we've had couple different hailstorms. I don't know exactly when that one hit. That one hit at about 2 in the morning, and it came from the north, and the hail hit the north side of the house, and I practically levitated out of bed. It was so loud. I thought it was a meteor shower hitting the house. 2 in the morning, looked outside. I could see, of course, lightning. I could see it was pouring down rain. I could see a little bit of hail, and it kind of slowed down. I didn't think much about it. And then when I went out the next morning to take a look around, I could see some holes in the vinyl siding of the house. So I knew obviously some damage had happened. I was thinking about the roof, so called the insurance company, had a contractor come out, had an adjuster come out, and they all agreed that the deck was actually damaged, the gutters were all damaged across all the downspouts, all the gutters around the house had dents in them. The roof was damaged enough to be replaced, and then the siding was damaged on a couple different sides of the house, and they decided to replace all of it so it could match. So it was a completely new exterior on that house, just from probably 20 seconds of hail at most, and it really didn't last that long. It's just that the hail was really big. And then fast forward a couple years later, and it was about 6 in the evening, and I was watching a storm roll in, started to pour down rain, hail started to fall. The hail was maybe this big at the start, and then eventually it got to seriously about the size of a golf ball. And it lasted maybe 10 or 15 seconds. Not that long at all. But as I was watching, I was thinking, I'm gonna have to call an insurance company. I'm gonna have to call a contractor, because that is some huge hail. And of course, they all agreed. The roof damaged enough to be replaced, covered by insurance, but the rest of the house didn't really sustain enough damage to be replaced or repaired. It was okay. It was just the roof. So that's 2 roofs in my ownership lifetime that I've gone through from hail damage. Now, some people can own a home their entire life for decades and multiple homes and never run into that. I just happened to run into a really goofy situation where we had a lot of hail in a short time span over a few years, and my house was sitting underneath some of those hailstorms. So every time we get severe weather, I'm thinking about hail. And I'm not just thinking about my house, I'm also thinking about my car, or either car that I'm driving. My wife's car, my car. We interchange. We don't really have a specific car. We just drive the one that's right for the family that day. And cars will get dented with hail, no doubt about it. So park it in the garage, park it under a shelter, and you'll obviously be safe from the hail then. But if it's out in the open, you're at risk of getting damage from hail. So we do get severe thunderstorms around Indianapolis, and they only really occur in the spring, summer, fall. Usually in the spring and the summer mostly. When we get to the fall, all the weather starts to calm down for the most part, but they aren't exceptionally common. In fact, most people that live here love a good thunderstorm. They're really entertaining. We love the lightning, we love the thunder, the heavy rain. It's pretty entertaining for a little bit. We don't want it all the time, but they happen infrequently enough to the point where most people are really pretty interested in watching them because they are pretty fascinating. But if you have questions about the frequency, the severity, anything regarding the severe weather around here, obviously it's not deterring people from living here. It's something that is, of course, on everybody's mind occasionally, but not to the point where we are going to move just because of that. There are millions of people that live in the Midwest, millions and millions, and here in the Indy Metro, a couple million people live around here. So obviously it must not be severe enough to chase everybody away. But if you have questions at all, concerns on your own or of your own, then reach out any way that you know how. And until the next one, we'll see you later.